Hey everybody, Scotty here at the Hustle and Grind Pod. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got another great episode. We've got Jen Govier of Hux. It's a brand you may or may not recognize. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. But what you probably have seen, on occasion, some Camel Toe. We're going to get into why Hux is solving that challenge and providing such a great entrepreneurial story to our listeners. Check us out. We talk about just that journey of like the corporate world and maybe starting that side hustle in that moment of time where the fear and the pain of staying outweighs the fear and the pain of moving on and chasing that dream. And that's exactly what she's doing, leaving the big corporate gig to slinging it out in the trenches and meeting some great people and associating with folks like Trish Stratus, WWE superstar, aligned with her brand. They're doing great things. We learn so much. We have a good time. There's some laughs. Check us out.
Okay, we're on. Jen Govier, welcome to the podcast. Owner and founder of Hux or Huxwear, as we were just talking.
Yep, hers. Yeah. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. This is awesome, Scotty. We're getting into some interesting territory here, right? I mean, camel toe talk.
What a way to get things started.
What a way to get things started.
I've been busting Alex's balls for about 15 minutes to hit record. But there's so much good stuff to get into. We may as well
start there.
Let's start there. So we're going to talk about explain. Oh man, how do we just pass the torch? Explain what a camel toe?
No, we're gonna. No, Jen, let me tell you this. No, let me tell you this. So, can you imagine? So I'm working with my lawyers, white men in their mid to late 40s, and they were talking about. I'm talking about this idea
of a business,
and we're trying to get a patent on it. And they said you have to come up with another name than Camel Toe. And I said I'm not, because I don't even have to explain it to you. Every person, it's an international.
Yeah, you're not going to create a new word.
No, I'm not. So I said, and every time I would say the first couple of meetings they would blush. And then now it's fine.
Now we're good. So can you take us through that journey? We're going to be all over the place on this one. It's going to be fucking awesome. But talk about Hux. I don't even know what the name means. You know, how you kind of how you kind of saw a need for this business and how you entered into the market, which arguably is a pretty saturated market, right? Women's underwear we're talking about.
I would say underwear for sure. Yep. But there isn't a product out here. That's why we have the patent on it.
Nice.
And they say, necessity is the mother of invention. And so I was at the gym doing kettlebell swings. Yeah. And I got a glimpse of my reflection. And I saw my camel toe, and I was like, geez, my anatomy is pretty typical. Yeah. And I was like, so if this happens to me, it's got to happen to... And then I just started to have the conversation, and it was my niece. She was a cheerleader, and she said, Aunt Jen, what we do is there's these little inserts you can put in your underwear, so when they throw us up, like if your skirt comes up, it disguises it. Oh. So I was like, oh. She said, yeah. So told me where to get them. So I tried. I was like, this is awesome. Yeah. And then I was at the gym, and I was doing laps around the gym, and the instructor, I'll never forget, her name was Wanda.
What happened to your camel toe? Please tell me that's what Wanda...
This is way worse. So Wanda stops, we're doing laps, Wanda stops and picks something up off the floor. And she picks...
shit.
Yes.
No.
And I
mortified.
knew it was what she was holding in her hands was in my pants. My sweaty pants. And then I was like, okay, that was
Wanda. Sorry about that.
And that was the genesis of Hux. I was like, why isn't this stitched in? And then I just started to do research on it.
Really?
And I was working. So the idea came in 2016. Mm-hmm. And I just said, if I'm doing one thing every day that moves the vision forward, then... I'll keep it alive and see what happens. Nice. And then so 2016 was an idea. I had a couple of people that I worked with, told them about it. They're like, we believe in you. We love your passion. Like, we'll work for you for free. Yeah. Which was pretty generous. And so we started it, and then we launched in 2020. So you can see it took a lot of time.
So 4-year gap of like R&D, kind of like, testing.
Idea to execution.
Totally.
That is key. I think that's a key component to what we want to talk about today. Sure. And for our listeners to be like, this took 4 years, right? Where a lot of people are like, hey, I'm going to start a business tomorrow, and I'm going to have like like customers lined up,
oh gosh,
the next day. But there's so much to unpack here that I kind of want to get into. The one thing that I've always been curious about, and I've known you for several years now, and I've kind of seen the evolution of this business that you've just done so well, is that you saw a need, obviously, for this product, but we see needs for things every day, right? Everyone's got ideas. I've got 20,000 ideas a day.
Yep.
I can improve this. I can improve that. What is it about you or about this idea that you were so committed to being like, yeah, there's a clear need. I can't be the first woman that's ever noticed this, but I'm going to actually execute and really commit to this.
Do you know what it was? I was working full time, and I was seeing people at the time being let go. So people were investing in their careers, they were doing their MBAs, and then next thing you know, they were let go. And so I really wanted to take, and then I had an interview. It was kind of one of the interviews that kind of got me thinking, like this. Somebody reached out to me and said, I think you should apply for this job. You have all the skill sets, you have all the licensing. So I went, I want you to meet my boss. I go in to meet the boss, and the boss was kind of a dick.
Yeah.
And kind of cocky. And, he's like, well, so had this interview. It went okay. And he said, so what's your next role? And I said, well, I don't choose roles by title. I said, I choose them by, like, what's the capability that I'm going to gain? Because that's going to help me. I'm not chasing titles. He's like, nope, wrong answer. I was like,
wrong answer?
It was wrong answer. And I was like, what do you mean wrong answer? He said, people are only going to invest in you if they know you want to take the next step. So I had to say I wanted to be, a VP, an SVP. And so it was at that time I was like, I don't want somebody to always be able to control my destiny. And then I've always listened to podcasts, and they always said, if you can solve a problem, you can build a business. So that kind of was always in my mind, is like, okay, what could I do if I was going to do anything?
Yeah.
And then this idea had come, and I was like, okay, if I think back to all the things I want to control my own destiny, this solves a problem.
Yeah.
There is a need. And I was like, and if I just do, and it was kind of gave me the inspiration. Just, I have this job that I'm doing, which was okay. I mean, as long as I'm learning and growing, I'm happy to stay. And so, every day I just moved it forward, and just one little thing a day.
This is Scotty's freaking mantra of life, man. One step at a time.
Yeah, like an inch an hour is 2 feet a day.
Yeah.
Right? You look back, a year later, and, you're not anywhere near the finish line, but you're sure as hell aren't anywhere near the starting line either.
Right.
Right? And I like one thing I heard there with this director or whoever you were interviewing was like, that's the wrong answer. And it's like, instantly I'm like, loser. Right? Like,
yeah.
Like,
I know.
Yeah.
You're a dick. You don't really actually, and this goes, we talked a little bit earlier about corporate, and there's so many good things, but there's so many toxic things about the corporate world that just don't sit well with me. And this guy gave you the spiel that it's a wrong answer, but what was cool about that is you kind of had a bit of a moment of reflection in it, and it kind of turned your sights in another direction.
Right.
So, although this guy, a lot of people could begrudge this guy for, and maybe not just that guy, but the persona of that role in a corporate structure, but it gave you a light bulb in another area, and kind of gave you that opportunity to kind of explore another path. Right. And I commend you on taking the exploration, because obviously it's turned out well. You're no longer in the corporate world.
No longer in the corporate world.
But you were along, the first almost decade in the mix, right?
Totally. I resigned. It'll be 2 weeks this Friday.
Wow,
I resigned.
so we're fresh at it.
Fresh.
Wow.
And I had my 20th anniversary in the corporate world in December.
Yeah.
And so, people would say it's nuts, like no question about it, leaving the security. But, I shared a little bit earlier that the fear of staying, and I'm having a milestone birthday this year, the fear of staying scared me more than the fear of going. I'm like, I'll figure this shit out. We have proof of concept. We have a patent. I'm not an idiot. We've got, Trish Stratus. We got her attention. So there is something here. We have sales. So imagine if I poured myself into this, the upside growth is limitless.
Yeah. And we were talking a lot off mic about a number of these things. And you mentioned that you kind of had a 2 weeks off over Christmas, I think it was.
It was.
And you really kind of dove into the business and being like, wow, if I really commit to this, not just as a side gig, this is how it could go. Could you imagine if I'm, I imagine that's probably, is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened. And so I've always held myself back with this side hustle because I'm in this corporate world where we're investing, high net worth people's money. I'm going to client events.
It was in the banking.
In banking. It's in banking. Yep. And so I'm in this world where you have this persona, you have to show up, you're leading, teams and clients and, billions of dollars in assets we're managing. Yeah. And then on my side hustle, I'm talking about Camel Toe. And so I just felt like I was always holding myself back. And my friends were like, we see you on Instagram and that's who you are. And we don't know this banking side where I have to keep everything all tucked in when I just want to drop an F-bomb. And give people the middle finger occasionally. And so I found over the holidays, I was like, I knew I was going to go all in. And I'm like, I'm just going to test this. And we literally went around and interviewed people. And it was like unbelievable. Like the feedback. Yeah. And it just was such confirmation that I needed.
Congrats.
Yeah.
That's congrats. Amazing. We're so excited for you.
I know. And it's such a, I think this story, I mean, we've had a lot of great stories and a lot of great guests, but I think this story in particular is going to be a specific niche of a story in terms of like leaving that corporate career to, really focus and commit to your, I guess, side gig. A lot of people have those side gigs and they can exist as a good side gig for a while. But like, at what point do you identify this as like, I can really make a go at this? And I mean, yeah, good on you. Like such courage to step away and do this. And I imagine that didn't just happen overnight. That was probably years of like
so much patience too, right?
Patience,
because I imagine there's pressures at times for you to make that move way earlier.
Oh, for sure.
Where the risks in jumping ship and moving on maybe were a bit higher. Yeah. Right. So just the patience to be like, I don't need this to happen tomorrow.
Right.
I'm this deep in it 4 years before you can even actually go to market. Yeah. Right. So anyone else who's on your heels in the same world, in the same space, you've got the patent now.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So there's an element of being patient there where you didn't necessarily, rush into it and trip over your feet at the start line, which is obviously, I think, so far been able to work out pretty well.
Yeah, it's been able to, and I would say I wasn't totally reckless. Like I have a cushion, and so I know that I have so many months that I can go where I'm not freaking out. Yeah. Right. And we're starting to think about do we invite investors in? People have approached us because my husband and I have built this from the ground up on our own, and having this job has afforded me the luxury to do that, and so. I'm not being reckless. And we have, like I said, proof of concept. I was like, so many people were telling me, what are you doing? Like, they're like, I'm in this full time. I have this business. It doesn't even solve a problem. Yours solves a problem. People don't even know they need your product and you're wasting your time. And like, the reality is that the job that I was doing while my team was doing meaningful work, I was kind of felt like, I was looking at my inbox and it's mundane. I was like, this does not, fill me up. And I'll say like, we have invented a really cool product that solves a problem, but it's about so much more. Like it's about inspiring women to live and move with more confidence because it friggin' took me way too long to have my confidence. And if I can shorten that distance for other people, that's what I want to do. Like, that's what fills me up. Having coffee this morning with somebody who came to me that I could, like, provide. I've been there.
Like mentorship.
Mentorship. Because when you're in a corporate world, as you know, you're surrounded by people who think the same way. Yeah. And so I paid to get in these rooms with people that think differently. And so, I think that's why I was losing my mind in my job is because we're all thinking about things the same way. And there wasn't a lot of space to, like, try new things.
Man. Interesting. I can imagine there's no shortage of ego in the banking world.
You say it like you've worked there. You say it like you've worked there.
Well, you add a bankroll to somebody's pocket. That in many cases is going to influence the ego just on its own. But then you've got the whole, well, no, you got to, if you want to get on this team, you've got to be able to describe to them what you're going to bring to the table and what chair you're going to fill next because everyone's climbing that ladder. Like people just, they don't, I don't know, man. Like it's it's a grind, battling of egos and lack of ownership because it's not their job. But even though deep down they know it's the right thing to do for the organization, for the culture of their people, but they're just constantly in conflict with themselves because they've got a posture.
Totally.
It's exhausting.
Oh, just listening to you say that is exhausting, man. Like
it makes me go, thank you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And, the three of us have worked corporately in the corporate world and, we've experienced that. And I know it's toxic and exhausting, but man, you can get trapped until you retire in that world, right? And it's easy to stay there. It's not easy, but it's easier to stay than what you did and leave and follow your dream and passion and really believe in yourself, right?
But I would say I had to do all of that to get me to here, right? Because I remember when we first launched during COVID, I was like, oh, I can't wait for this to blow up. This is so exciting. And 6 months out of the gate, we actually won. We won Limitless through Tech Alliance. We won this award.
Nice.
I had to do this friggin' speech, and I was talking in like third person. I was such a weirdo because I hadn't got my head around this is my business. This is my. But I needed all of the experience. Even like if it would have blown up, we wouldn't have been prepared. We needed it to take the time that it would, so we can improve the manufacturing, we can improve the quality, we can do all of those things. So I would say in terms of the bank, it had given me the courage and confidence to do this.
Yeah.
So I worked in the bank and I did every job from, the front line. I did work in India, I did work in HR, I worked workforce management. So all of that had given me the courage to go, if I can go, lead people on a different continent, then I can sure as hell figure out this underwear business. Yeah. And so, but I had to do all of that to have the courage to get in front of investors. Like I remember one of our clients sold their business and I was signing off on the papers and like, oh, they sold their business for 20 million. Jen, someday this is going to be you. I'm thinking, I'm going for $1 billion.
Yeah, 20 million. Chump change.
Chump change. But you have to be around that to see what's possible. Yeah. So then you have another client sell theirs for 150 million. I'm like, okay, that's close. That feels a little bit better. But I have to be around that so that I can see what's possible. Because if you don't see that stuff, you can't dream that big.
And Scott, you talk about this well too, where, it's good to have these roles and do these jobs to know what you don't want to do in life. And you almost have to go through that. And, I teach entrepreneurship at Fanshawe and these young, aspiring, energetic students that want to be business owners. And, they think they're going to graduate and become business owners the next day. And it's funny, I put up a slide in one of my lectures and I put up every single job I've ever had, from pumping gas to working in a restaurant to working corporately, all the bullshit I went through to finally become an entrepreneur, being like, I learned something from every single one of those jobs I did. Yeah. And, I almost discourage them from just jumping into entrepreneurship and being like, look, take some years to grind it out, work shitty jobs, go work at a restaurant. It's great. You get to interact with people, that sort of thing. And then understand that, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, because, they all want to maybe open up a restaurant or whatever they all want. And I'm like, there's only so many restaurants that can exist in London, right?
Yeah. And even ones that are managed by competent operators doesn't guarantee success.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really enjoying this chat because it's reminding me of so many things too. And it's easy to beat up on the corporate world, right? But there's so many good people in there, right? Incredible people, long life-lasting friendships. So it's okay to take a moment and take an inventory of all of the shit you've learned. Give yourself some credit for dealing with the bullshit. Those scars have made you who you are. You're better for it. You're stronger for it. And then if you're in that awkward, is there more to life than this? And you're curious about like finding another path. Like, you don't have to quit tomorrow, but you can do an inventory of all the shit you've accomplished. Give yourself a pat on the back and remind yourself that you're capable of actually figuring shit out. And the second you give yourself permission to explore something else, who knows where you end up, but just that opportunity to explore interests elsewhere, meet new people, get into different rooms. Totally. Right? Yep. Talk to people who have a different experience and perspective. you'd be surprised where you land, and it might be 10 years later, it might be 10 months later, but
the time's going to pass anyway. So just moving it forward,
there you
right?
go.
It's just going to go. So, but I would say the biggest thing for me is polarity was clarity. Like as soon as I had that, I was like, okay, I definitely don't want this. And
can you explain that? Just like polarity is clarity. Like I love that.
Like when you have resistance in your life, you have to pay attention to why am I resisting this? So like I would go into work and I was like, I've never had this much resistance to a job. Like I'm sure if you looked under, the cells in my body were different.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not meaningful work. What is it? I'm making more money than I've ever made, and I'm not feeling fueled. And I was like, I don't understand why this is. And it's because I think, and this sounds a bit woo, but I'm called to do something bigger, and it would have been very easy for me to stay. And so I was like, no, I know I'm meant for this. Everywhere I go, women are stopping me. I was at a volleyball tournament and mothers were thanking me for inventing this product because their daughters are in these short shorts. And even one of the fathers came up. He was
100%. I'd be mortified. I have 3 sons. Yeah. I wasn't born to be a girl dad. I'd be mortified.
Yeah. So they were thanking me. And I was like, there were so many signs that this is where I'm meant to be. And if it wasn't as hard doing my day to day, maybe I wouldn't have taken the jump. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the resistance and the polarity and all of that.
Can we go back, Jen, just a little bit, because this is awesome. But I want to be aware that, our listeners a lot of them might be in the same boat, right? Of, being stuck in a job and just not knowing where to go or what to do and having an idea, having a side gig. But can you take us through really how, when you started it, obviously we talked about how the idea came to you, but that kind of journey,
getting the patent,
all these things, getting the patent. We're talking about a product. And I know, I work with a lot of clients that are product-based companies. We work with 3PL companies, and there's overstock, and then there's trends that come and go, all these things. Can you take us through your journey on how that all evolved?
Yeah, that was probably the longest journey, was getting the product perfected. And so, because no one wanted to pay, you start out, and I actually told, his name was Dennis Yu. He's a great guy, and he's a dude. And I worked with him. We were great partners. And I told him this, he's like, Jen, I'll help, whatever you need. We work so well together. So he had the first meeting at his house. God love him. For Camel Toe underwear. Great guy. Still love him.
Yeah.
And so we would meet at his house. There was a group of us, and we would meet. And then we literally were testing fabric out, and we had a stapled prototype. And I took it to, I went to Western, to the engineering department, to see if they could help me. And this man, the head of the engineering department, is me and 2 dudes walking in there. And he's like, I got your email. And I was telling my wife that I was meeting with you. And so.
And are you using the term camel toe through your emails and stuff?
Through everything.
Yeah. And are you having to explain it at all?
Not at all.
Okay, because they're probably going to their wife going, what is it? What's a camel toe?
What man is saying that?
Anyone who didn't know would be too embarrassed to ask. They just went to the internet.
They went,
and they learned.
Totally.
They learned in a hurry, and they're like, I know what that is.
Yeah.
So you're being extremely resourceful.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've already built a team or something.
It's friends and colleagues.
Okay,
people that worked with me or for me, and they believed in the idea, believed in my passion, believed in the vision. And we were meeting monthly. We were doing minutes, and we went to the London Economic. We went everywhere, and nobody could help us. Then we went to the fashion department. So the engineering guy's like, sir, I don't know if I can help you. Why don't you go to the fashion department at Fan Show? We went there. They're like, we don't really have the resources. Then we went to a local designer. She couldn't help us. She didn't have the machinery. And then, I talk about the universe all of the time. When you take action and put out intention, shit lines up in crazy ways. Yeah. So friends of ours were in Costa Rica. They were on their own spiritual journey. They were at Rhythmia. This is where they do the ayahuasca. They were doing their own thing, but very fancy place, places where Dr. Joe Dispenza goes to this fancy place. When they're there, they meet somebody. Her name's Rebecca. She's from New York City. She's a designer. They call me from Costa Rica, and they're like, Jen, we found somebody that's going to help you get this off the ground. I start crying. I was like, you're on your own spiritual journey, and you're calling me from frickin' Costa Rica to line me up with this girl, Rebecca, from New York City. So amazing.
Yeah.
And I was just saying to my team at our last meeting, guys, just trust me. This will work out. Let's not get discouraged. Things will always have a way of working out. She flies in to Toronto to meet me at Sassafras. I pull out this prototype. We took the staples out. One of my friend's moms had a sewing machine and made it look prettier. Pulled it out on the table in Sassafras in Toronto, one of a very nice restaurants.
Yeah.
Literally, people are like, what the hell's going on?
What's going on
She's
over
holding up
there?
the underwear.
Super
that she
weird,
has?
but also intriguing.
So this girl says, I love your energy. I love what you're doing. I don't have to take on clients, but I'll take on you. And she had all the manufacturing lined up in Asia, and so that was the start of it.
Oh man!
But you can imagine the synchronicities that had to happen. Like that's the stuff that I can't explain to people enough. That if you have an idea and you take action, just shit happens.
So you said before, you're like, oh, I don't want to go all woo woo, and I don't really either, but I'm intrigued by
Did I just go woo woo?
No, well, no. I mean,
Little woo woo. Good woo woo.
but it's this, like you said, shit lined up. There was some like serendipity there.
Yeah.
But you also said, look, if you take action and you do something with purpose and intention, it's amazing what lines up, right? There's this study that I was just learning about, which is kind of neat. And I'll tell you guys about it if you can bear with me for a sec. So they hired these actors to go out into the street and they'd have a coffee and they'd walk up. The actors would walk up to random people in the street and they'd say, here, can you hold this? And they'd look down and like 98% of people grab the coffee from them, right? They're going to drop it. It's just a weird thing. They grab it. And then about an hour later, somebody went up, grabbed to the same people that had held a coffee prior and said, look, I got $20. This isn't a scam. We're really tight on our research. We're just trying to get some of this research done. Can you, I just need you to help read this story. And it was like a small little short story. And they're like, give me the impression of the main character. And half of the people who got the coffee got an iced coffee and half of the people got a normal hot, warm coffee. Literally, like, the percentage of folks who had the iced coffee described the character as cold.
Oh, come on.
And yes, as like a cold character. The people who had gotten the warm coffee an hour earlier described them as warm and comforting.
Wow.
So where I'm going with this is that we're so conditioned by our environment. We're so, like, we think we're doing things because we know what we need to do and we want to do. We are primed by our environments. Like that study alone
That's cool.
is
cool.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Like, you held a cold coffee an hour earlier versus a warm coffee, and the way
And your
you
whole perspective changes
of the main character, it's the same bloody story.
Yeah.
It's the same bloody story.
Yeah.
So again, where I'm going with this is like, take a moment to ask yourself, how am I influencing my environment? Am I priming my environment to see the world in a way that I want to see it, right? Because there's bullshit going on all around us, and if you want to focus on it, guess what? There's enough of it for you to hold your attention.
There's a lot of noise.
Yeah.
There's a lot of noise. So prime your environment. Get yourself set up for what it is you want to see. And if you're bullshit on the woo-woo stuff, like, that study is just like, that's real life.
It's real life.
Right?
Yeah.
They say there's two type of people in the world, and I say this to my kids: the people that look for the positive and look for the negative. Like, I literally will find the upside of down all day long.
There's no
question.
For sure you are, because you just talked about how you were, hitting walls and lots of hurdles, and people couldn't, figure it out with you. And I imagine that was discouraging. But here you are as a leader and this visionary, having so much trust, being like, this is gonna work, guys. And that would have been easy for you to walk away and be like, man, these fashion people can't figure it out. The, engineer got like, oh shit, I guess maybe
I was wrong.
I was wrong. I guess this might not work. But your conviction is so admirable that you just stayed the course, right? And I mean, that is probably where a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business owners just, at some point you're like, I got to throw in the towel because, it's just, it's just not, it's not going to work. And no fault of I've done it where I'm like, I'm too far down this path, and I'm just, I got to throw in the towel. I don't know,
Well, it's a slippery slope, because I think there's delusion in some cases too, right? I think the difference with your story is the validation in the market from the volleyball tournaments,
right,
from Wanda. Like,
I love that you remembered her name.
Wanda. Thank you, Wanda.
That's awesome.
Right, but your passion, you knew, and no one else had solved the problem yet. Right. So you're like, Clearly. I'll be damned if it's not me.
Yeah.
Right. So, but there is that fine line, because if there isn't that massive need, and there isn't a gap in the market that you're trying to. And so maybe whatever it is you're chasing, maybe you should kind of pack it in, right? Like, so there's some businesses that, again, like, they're not solving a major problem and inventing a new category.
Right. And I also think you have to be so anchored on your why, because on the days that it's hard, you will just quit. And so I grew up in a lower to middle class family, secondhand clothes. My dad was a bus driver, a city bus driver. My mom stayed home with us. And he would always have a second job. So he would go to rich people's homes and cut their grass. And I would go and mull around the yard. Wasn't helping him, but I would pretend I lived in these houses, because I just saw how hard it was. My parents always provided what they could, but it always felt like there wasn't enough. And so my why, if I look at, my family, out of all of the people I've made, in terms of, my net worth is probably all of them combined.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to them at all. It's just, I had this vision. And so, we've built an amazing product that does truly solve a problem. I want to show up people what's possible when they dream a big dream and take inspired action, and it doesn't matter where the fuck you came from, you can get there. And so I live in a world of, the corporate world, there was lots of money and but I wouldn't say there was a shit ton of happiness, and what wasn't always grateful, right? And so that to me was like, I am driven to show people what's possible, and I want to build the biggest, kindest company that just helps inspire people to live and move with more, like, truly. That's what pushes me.
Well, you can tell, I mean, even on your website and learning about your business, there is a lot more to it than just a product, right? There's mission, vision, values. There's the I love that you say the why. I really do.
Because you quit on the like my days are. I have full days when I was working my corporate job. So I did that for 9 years. Like this on the side, coming home tired at night. Like I was like, I do my hucks before my business. So I get up early, do my hucks, go into work all day. I'm not looking at my phone at all.
No.
You can't cut corners when you're in a regulated business. Like you can't do it. Then I go home, go to the gym, because that would give me the energy to keep going. So for 9 years,
holy shit,
to do that, if my why wasn't big enough, every time I had a setback, but I'm like, fuck this. If they can do it, why can't I? Right. And so, not because like I don't live this, materialistic lifestyle, but it's like, why can't I? And just truly show people what's possible.
Now, not that, I love that. That's so good, Jen. And it's so inspiring too, for sure. And now, you say 9 years, and there's a lot of years here. I know you don't have a crystal ball, and you didn't, but did you think it would take that long? Because I get these ideas, and I'm like, I can just do this and that, and in a month we're going to solve a problem, we're going to have a business and be good to go. Was there like some sort of a timeline you had in mind, or was it just like, I'm going to do this and follow this journey and this path where it takes me?
So I didn't have a timeline. I think that was my problem. I didn't need more time. I needed a deadline. And so I hired a coach, and she literally, her and the whole freaking community said, pick a date. And I journal every day. So I went back and I was like picking different dates, but I wasn't really aligned to the dates. I was just randomly picking dates, but I picked Friday, January 24th. Friday, January 24th, 2025, because it's 125.
Wow.
And so I picked that date because we get our bonus payout. so I'm going to get the bonus. So it's, it adds to the cushion. So I could get anchored at my husband's birthday's on the 25th, January 25th. And so it would be a big, meaningful date. So when I pick that date, I'm the person who will do what I say I'm going to do. And so whether I was ready or not, it was happening. I spoke it out. I was like, I'm a person of my word. And so it was happening. It was happening. Now, the bonus this year, because we had some things happen in our, in our world, weren't as high as you anticipated. I was like, doesn't matter. I said, I'm going to do this. I have the evidence. I'm going, and I did it.
And it would have been so easy to be like, we'll go next year because it's going to be a better year. I can count on that bonus and then get sucked back in. Like, it would have been so easy to just slide back into comfort and start just going through the motions, and good on you.
Yeah. That's so. So you meet this lady from New York City. You have this meeting at the restaurant, and she's in. And then what happens?
No patent by then?
No patent. No.
Okay.
Yeah. No. We did. Once I had the product developed, I then applied for the patent. So she signed. So I have to sign her on retainer. So this is why the job was important. So I could pay people to do this.
Yeah.
So,
right.
And it was in U.S. dollars, which kind of sucks because
especially these days.
Well, these days, but even back then, it was still 30 cents on the dollar.
Right.
And so I hired her, paid her monthly, and she did all the product development. She worked with the manufacturers, and so she just got our first shipment sort of finalized, and then we started to sell. So as soon as I had the product landed, I then applied for the patent. When you apply for the patent, you essentially, it's tens of thousands of dollars, and you don't even know if you're going to get it.
Right.
So I applied for the patent. They said they're not even going to look at it for a year. So then it wasn't even a year. Then they came back saying there was something similar, kind of went back and forth, and then 4 years later, we got the patent.
What? Now, is this a North American patent or
North American?
North American.
Because they said, do you want to do global? If you do global, it's even more expensive. And so the one thing that I learned, I didn't even know the difference between a trademark and a patent. I was
Who would know, right? How would you ever know? Yeah, exactly.
And so one of the things that I learned along the way is they say, if you think of the brand Kleenex, there's tons of brands that have Kleenex, right? You don't need a patent on it to do that, but you want to be the brand that everybody goes to. So do this in North America. It shows people that you're serious about it, and just be the best brand. And so that's kind of what I was like, okay, we'll do it in North America. And now there have been a couple of things that have popped up through China because we do manufacture in Asia. And so I've seen stuff that's similar that pops up. But I remember hearing a story about Sarah Blakely, who invented Spanx. And when she launched, she said that people were starting
Same thing.
And she's like, I didn't even go after them. I'm not going to waste my dollars. I just put my head down and focus on selling the product.
Okay, so let's just back the truck up. Some of these names. So let's talk about Trish. Let's talk about Sarah.
You like Trish?
Well, it's impressive.
It's wild, right? Spanx, just picking up the phone and having that chat. How does?
No, I didn't have that chat. It was sorry. Let me clarify. I heard her on how I built this. The first podcast that they did was how I built this.
Oh,
and she was on that.
She was on that. Okay, got it.
I wish.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, holy! I knew you guys were working with Trish Stratus. Which was awesome and still is. But then you threw out Blakely,
that's the beauty of podcasts. So is you can learn from other people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's go there. So you've developed. Okay, but I did. So you got the patent. One of the questions I have is whether you got the patent or not. What's the why get the patent? What's the relevance?
So I wasn't even certain. So people had said if you get this patent, it protects you. People can't go to market and say they have the patent. You could sue them, all of that.
Yeah.
But so this is where it came in handy because I was like,
you could have done it without the
for sure you could. For sure you could. Yeah. So I'll tell you. So the manufacturer that we were using for the first round, we learned some expensive lessons with that. We didn't pay to have somebody check on ground. So when they arrived, there was some stuff wrong with the actual product. We should have had boots on the ground. So we wanted to change manufacturers. And we thought it would be as you grow, like if you're going to get into places like Sport Check, that you really have to have a reputable manufacturer. And so this is the stuff you learn as you go.
Yeah.
So Venitra, they do high end, like they do Hallie Hansen, Noble, they do a lot of high end manufacturers. And so my husband kept saying, we really should try to get in with them. They know what they're doing. They have all the machinery. They'll know the quality. And so, you know, you try to reach out to all of them. They're like, you're a startup. We're not going to invest in somebody who wants
they can't afford to, they can't afford to shut down a line
for you.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that.
Right.
And so, but I always say everything always works out. And so I got a couple of emails. So I emailed, you know, a couple of people, a couple more people, and they finally responded back to me. And they said, well, if you're willing to jump on a call, because I said I have a patent, hop on a call. They took my call because during COVID, I guess people were freaked out because they were worried that things were going to shut down. So they ordered tons of products, so their lines were slow.
Oh, because their inventories were packed.
They packed because they were worried the world was. So they're like, we have room, and they said we have room. And the reason we're taking this call from you, it was a Zoom call, is because you have a patent. You and your husband fully funded it. You're not just some schlup that's trying to. So it gives us evidence that you're actually invested in this.
Yeah.
So they've taken us on. So it's been, and the product is like, yeah. So nothing happens by accident.
Oh my goodness.
And so Trish Stratus, let me tell you, I paid for a coach in the U.S. It was like something stupid, like $25,000 U.S. for this coach.
Like a business coach.
Business
or something?
coach. They look at your business, try to optimize everything. It was more like, Jen, go do the work. Anyway.
Yeah.
I wanted more guidance
Okay.
But because of that, they were working with Hulk Hogan. So I said, I would love Trish Stratus. Here's why I would love Trish Stratus, because we're talking about vision. I want Trish Stratus because I love how strong she is. She's fit.
Yeah.
And I saw her as a judge on Canada's Got Talent. I love how kind she is. Kindness is very important to me. I don't care how much money you got. How kind are you? And so he's like, yeah, no problem. Like, we have Hulk Hogan. Well, so they gave me Trish Stratus's manager's name and contact details. So I shipped her the product. I ended up dripping on her on Instagram. Hey, da-da. She wasn't responding. And then she got the product and she responded back.
Whoa.
She said, I'm going to connect you to her Talas, of her right-hand lady, amazing woman. And we hit it off. And so, yeah.
Wow.
She loved the project. You know, it was cool. This is what was cool. This is what I love about building this Hux is the community of beautiful people we have around us.
Yeah.
The women that support us, that go on and comment. Trish Stratus said one of the deciding factors for her was the fact that she looked through all the notes and the messages and how caring the community was and supported me. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Kindness.
Cool.
Yeah, kindness is where it's at.
It's underrated, man.
Underrated.
It is. It is where
it you know, in the business world, kindness might be seen as a weakness sometimes, but it's really a strength.
Well, but it depends on, like, if you're at the negotiating table and you've got some tactics and you're trying to win a deal and you know, fight a battle and you know, not that you're going to be a dick or an absolute douchebag, but the way you just treat people matters, right?
Yeah.
And that's some kindness. Like, even if we're in a hard-nosed negotiating deal, I'm going to give you the respect that you deserve, and I'm going to treat you with kindness, right? I'm not gonna not do that.
It's these kind of soft skills are becoming less soft skills and more very they're needed a lot more, right? And I think, you know, that's why we need more female entrepreneurs, to be quite frank, is that, like, we need less masculinity and more kindness and you know, I love, you know, we've had several female business owners on, and I'm always just like in awe of, you know, and yourself too, Jen, of just like, it's just, you know, because I have a daughter and I would love for her to become an entrepreneur. She wants to be a doctor and all this stuff, right? But I think
that's entrepreneurial.
Yeah, it is. But I think she'd be a kick-ass business owner.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that, you know, she goes down that path.
No,
that she can't in that field find
a digital space,
a niche where,
for sure.
Right? And that's the other thing. Like, and I was actually thinking about it earlier today. is with our show and the conversations we have and this around business and entrepreneurship, like just because you're not a business owner and maybe you're not ready for that jump or that path, I think there's just so many entrepreneurial skills that are valuable in any business, whether you're working for the corporate giant or whether you're just, you know, at a department store, right? Or a retail outlet of sorts. Like there's so many valuable lessons that, you know, entrepreneurs learn, just like I said, rolling around in the mud and getting knocked down and back up. So, but there's life lessons there too.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Jen, you mentioned your husband a few times, and I kind of want to go there in terms of, like, you know, the support, right? Because we all know, right? You can't do this without the support of family, friends, partner, husband, wife, that sort of thing. I mean, Scott and I know that firsthand. But it sounds like he was really supportive in this journey.
So supportive. There was never a question. Like it's a lot of our investments that we've had to. So he had to be all in
for sure,
and never once questioned any of this. And anytime I had challenges at work, he was like, "Dude, it's go time. Let's do this. You can do this."
Wow.
And yeah, he's been.
Is he an entrepreneur?
Well, he's helping to build this. So he does more of the operation stuff, like all of the genius ideas outside of like the actual product. He like switching the manufacturing. That was his thing. Trish Stratus, he pushed me so he's like, follow up with her. You need to, and I was like, okay, I'm trying to balance out not being desperate, but everything that's been amazing that's happened, it's because he's pushed and believed in me, and even like leaving the security of a job, he was like, go in, you've got this.
Yeah.
And definitely. So I could not do this without him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way less creepy for you to follow up with Trish than him too.
Good point. Good point, Scott.
He was still pissed. He did not join me at the meeting. He was like, dude.
You gotta bring me in on this one.
Yeah. So he really wanted to meet here, but I just didn't want it to be creepy.
Not yet. Patience.
Yeah. But you know, you look at Trish, Stratus, and these I guess I don't characters. They played characters in the media or in their in WWE and that sort of thing, but super smart and super just driven and understanding that like you hear I was listening to like Dolly Parton talk maybe on a podcast or something, and she was always like the blonde country star and that sort of thing, but man, she's a beast and an absolute genius, and she played that role because she knew that was the role that would get her help her career, right, in country music. And to understand the role that you play and be not manipulative, but really play that to your advantage, I think it seems like she is that way.
Oh, I was so impressed with her because when you see someone online, like I was like, oh, please live up to who I think you're going to be. I didn't want to be disappointed. Mm-hmm. But so we got to the restaurant first. We just met in a restaurant in Vaughan. It was Vaughan. Yeah, it was Vaughan. Mm-hmm. So when we went in, I said, my girlfriend Isabel and I, she came, she helps with all the content. She's a creative genius. Yeah. She came with me. She's a really good coach.
She's
and awesome. So she's so cool. Mm-hmm. And so we go into I said, I want to sit at the back because, I didn't say who was coming in with us, but I wanted her to be away we would face the door and then Trish would face the back. And so she comes in. I give Tal a hug. I know her more. Then I give Trish a hug. She sits down. She's she's a ball of energy. She's so magnetic. And she's so beautiful. I kept staring at her. I was like, what in the hell? How do you look like that?
Creepy after all.
But she goes, oh, thank you so much for tucking us away here. I said, Trish, I got you. So then she got up to go you could start to see people talking, right? But her back was to him. So she got up to go to the washroom. We're carrying on. And then she comes back, and the waitress comes up to us and says, is there a Trish at the table here? And I don't want to blow her cover.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, and Trish says, well, why do you ask? And I remember her back's to everybody. She's like, well, somebody's asking if there's a Trish at the table, and now the restaurant's buzzing because Trish is in their freaking restaurant.
Yeah.
And she said, just tell them Trish says hi. And she walks away. And I said to Trish, I go, does that drive you nuts? And I said, I thought we tucked you in the corner and nobody knows. She said, no, I went to the washroom and I could see that somebody. But after she stopped, she took pictures. She autographed. She said, why would I ever hate this? These are my people, or these are my fans.
Yeah.
And even I said, oh, my dad loves you. She goes, oh, the old men love me. She goes, she says that. She goes, what's your dad's name? I go, Ed. So she has this, we're going over this business plan. So she says, it's Ed. And I said, my dad can't believe you look this good after being so banged up.
Yeah.
So she's like, hi, Ed. According to you, I still banging. And she signs it. And she's just such a good sport. She was so kind. And so when she hugged me at the end, she said 125. And I go, 125? She goes, that's when you're going to leave your job, 125. And I was like, fuck,
she knew
said that.
No way.
I had talked to her about, and she just put it together.
She remembered.
Yeah. And she just hugged me and goes, 125.
Holy shit.
I was like, oh.
Yeah.
She just listens and pays attention.
Listens.
She listens. She listens. And she had so many big dreams about what this looks like and she's all this energy. I feel like I sometimes talk to, she is you sometimes can't understand her because
my God.
She's so cool. And she was sitting there and I said, your little nose is so perfect. She goes, no. And she takes my hand, puts it on her nose and it's all crunchy and broken. But she's just so, you would have thought we were friends for 25 years.
Wow. That's
cool.
There's
it just restores a little faith in humanity, right? Because it's so easy to see the bullshit negative stories about, not everybody's kind, right? And there's a lot of ego, of course, talk about Hollywood, no shortage of ego in the wealth business, talk about Hollywood. But it's just so nice to hear that, there are still so many great folks out there. They're just, so they're kind, they're grateful, right?
Yeah.
They're grateful. Maybe part of their success is because they've had some gratitude and they don't take it for granted and they take the time to sign the autograph and that's awesome.
Yeah, she was very,
very
cool.
awesome.
Now, what, I want to talk to you about this because I've been thinking about this a lot. Actually, I have these conversations a lot in my career as a marketing person, influencers, right? So I imagine, obviously Trish, she's quite the influencer on social media. You're no stranger to social media. You're killing it and you're climbing and, I teach this and I talk to clients about it and, this kind of concept of influencers. We need influencers, and I'm not talking the Kim Kardashian type of influencer, but I mean, there's macro influencers and micro influencers. And what's your kind of take on this? And I think a lot for our listeners as well to be when you talk about influencers, what does that mean? And you could have, 10 micro influencers with maybe 200 followers, and they could really do a great job for your business because those 200 followers are really paying attention and they're going to take action versus 1 million followers and only, 20 people are paying attention. Is this kind of part of Trish's role? And what's your thought about, influencers on social media and how to kind of navigate through that?
So my experience is the micro has been way more successful.
Interesting.
Way more successful. They are more willing to send comments. They are way willing to send video. I don't even have to ask.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So I would say, without a question, the micro gave me far more reach, far more sales.
Awesome.
I even looking like a Megan, right? Who's helped, she's in the fitness world.
Megan Terzis.
Yes.
Yeah. Shout out. Owns F45.
F45.
Yeah.
They're opening up a new Pilates studio. She's unbelievable. She is a super connector.
Yeah.
And so, she never hesitates to put something, would not want anything in, she's unbelievable. So, I would say, the micro without a question.
Yeah, and
you don't know that when you have, because you have to pay for the macro. You really, really, really have to think about it's got to be strategic and doesn't make sense. But in terms of sales and return on ROI, I would say.
Yeah. And a lot of the time with the micro influencers, you're paying a product perhaps, and you're not having to pay we're working with one client and they realized they were paying a ton of money for these kind of macro, I guess mid-macro influencers, and they're like, we're getting shit all from this, and like they're doing like maybe a post a month or something,
right?
Versus, you know, the micro influencers that they're in it with you, they're in this journey with you, right? They want to help and see you succeed.
They do.
And, you know, give me some product, I'll be happy to do posts.
Well, that and
whatever, right?
their communities, it sounds like in many cases humble to give back to their community,
right?
Right. So their network and their fan base, followers, whatever we want to call it, feels like they know them, they like them, they trust them. So there's it's like almost like a personal connection, maybe, where you know, that's why that's a stronger influence, because you know, if it's just some bigger celeb, you know, they don't really know them.
Yeah.
It's
good
true.
point. That's a really good
And
point.
you see so many celebrities now doing that, right? And it's so not organic. It's like,
I know. Yeah.
But it does give you the clout, I will say. So we have been able to get the attention
of
when
course.
you do get the clout. So,
but a balance, maybe.
And I mean, you know, Trish Stratus being a macro influencer, arguably, I mean, it still aligns with your vision and mission. You're not just, you know, paying for
random.
Yeah, it's not random. It was very meticulous in terms of like you guys connecting, her believing in you believing, like there is value there.
There was so much. That was it. And that for her too. She said, I don't want to because people pitch me all the time, right?
True.
And she's like, same thing. If it's not in alignment, she's not willing to do it.
She's got to protect her brand and be like, oh, great.
And her time.
And her time.
Yeah. You only got so much bandwidth too, right?
Yeah.
And if you're a superstar, everybody wants a piece.
Oh, I know.
Like when she was on that WWE thing on the weekend, all the texts and tweets and not tweets, whatever it is now.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you call it a tweet?
No,
I think they're still tweets.
It's okay. But like, you know, with her X's. And here's your girl. And that makes me proud because that was something that we aspired to.
I watched the Royal Rumble with my kids.
Yeah. Like, look at her. How old is she? She's 50.
Wow. She's 50.
She's 50.
Good for her.
Yeah, good for her.
And, you know, I've had this chat with my kids, and we go on the wrestling path here. You know, one of our neighbor kids were over, and somebody got smashed with a chair, and
of course it is.
He lost his tooth. There was blood. There was blood all over the mat, right? And one of my, you know, our kids' buddies, he was devastated. He's like, no, I don't want to see it. He's like, I feel sick. And I was like, boys, he's not, like, he didn't actually, I don't think he lost his teeth. I don't think he lost his teeth. They're like, what? No, there's blood everywhere. I'm like, I don't know if that was real blood. Right? But it's, you know, so you're trying to tell them, like, that wrestling, you know, and I'm like, it's not fake, fellas. These folks are
they're legit athletes.
So,
yes.
like,
100%.
You know, the outcome might be, you know, designed, but don't kid yourself. These guys and gals are absolute athletes. They're animals, right? Like they are like you can't get faked getting tossed from the top
That's
rope
not fake.
from 8 feet in the air. Like that's a real 8 feet.
Like you have to land it, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I think he still has his teeth. I think he still has his teeth.
Okay, so Jen, can you take us to where we are now? Because this has been quite the journey for you, and thanks so much for sharing everything. It's been awesome to learn this. But where do you find yourself now? So you left your corporate gig after 20 years.
Yeah.
And you're kind of fresh into this full-on entrepreneurship thing. Where is the company? You know, you're expanding. You have about 6 different products now.
We have different products, so it's still all underwear. So we're looking at doing volleyball is a space that I didn't even realize how big this is. Yeah. So when we were at this tournament, there was 20 teams, and like we had people lined up. We sold out a product. We were closing for the day, and people were like, I heard about this.
Oh wow!
There was a coach there from Virginia Tech, I think, and she tried. So she's like, you need to go to this tournament. There's 800 teams, and so we're talking with a few people. Now in baseball, so the woman who
I was going to say women's athletics has got to be like niche by niche, sport by sport.
So that's where, and I didn't necessarily know. Like here we are. Like, do we get in gyms? Like, so I'm doing some pop ups in gyms. So a couple of things. So we're looking at. So volleyball teams, and so they have apparels for all of their teams. They gift it as people register, and so we're talking through that for volleyball, for baseball. the source. So the source handles all of the uniforms. So looking at that, we haven't closed any deals on that by any stretch, but this is what we're thinking about. Licensing. So people have said, like, you should be doing this in bathing suits. You know, I wear my Hucks, like the full bottoms for my bathing suit bottoms. It's like, that's amazing. But what if we license it, the patent, to like a Speedo or whoever, so they can design so this is the stuff that
This is why you get the patent.
This is why you get the patent.
There you go.
And so this is the stuff, the creative stuff, I just didn't have time at the end of my day to do. I was like replying to emails, but not really being strategic. So like looking at licensing, getting into stores, really focusing on the women's team. I would love for us to be the apparel choice for women in the Olympics in Los Angeles in 2028.
Wow.
So that's like a lofty kind of, you know, I put stuff out to the universe.
Yeah.
You just put it out here on this podcast.
So
I'm with you.
Right. And so, so that's, and we will grow our product line. You know, we have a couple of prototypes to put the insert in yoga pants. We haven't perfected it yet, and I'm not going to do it half-assed. Then I'm like, do we just design yoga? So
you're still innovating.
Still innovating.
Yeah.
So much fun, man.
Yeah.
It's fun.
That sounds
It's
awesome.
fun.
And you know, this is also a conversation I have a lot with business owners and clients and that sort of thing. And I'm guilty as charged too. Working in your business versus working on your business.
Right.
I mean, you're in it, man.
Yeah.
You're in it.
Yeah.
But at what point, and it sounds like you're good at this, where you step away and you're able to quiet your mind and create that vision, that innovation, that forward thinking. What is the kind of formula there for you or for people listening? I mean, is that important to do?
Oh, gosh, for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I always have lofty visions. Like I say, we will be a global brand. We will be absolutely a global brand. So aspirations. That I try not to get worried and fussed on the how, because if you do, you get paralyzed. And so it's just like we're all one relationship away from changing the game.
Yeah.
And so I live like that. Like, you don't meet anybody by accident. You make sure you nourish and take care of people. And I talk about that law of reciprocity. So I do want to build this to a place where I have my team running the day-to-day, and then I want to go around and meet people and look for the opportunities. I don't want to run the day-to-day as this grows. I truly just want to go out and talk to people and show them what happens when you have a vision and take action.
Yeah, smart.
I can't wait to see the journey. I mean, thank you for coming on. This has been absolutely unbelievable, and I know you'll be a global brand. Like, it's happening.
It's
right.
And I mean, for it to be happening here in London, Ontario, is pretty fucking awesome. That's
so cool.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's so inspiring, and just, you know, your journey and the fact that you continue to innovate. People can find you everywhere online now.
Well, you know, this is the crazy thing. So I had Facebook.
Yeah.
I had Facebook. My Facebook got hacked. So if there's anyone that can help me with this, so my personal Facebook got hacked. My personal, my business Facebook got hacked. I'm trying to get in touch with someone to help me reactivate it. Isn't that all those friggin' followers, all that energy?
This is a problem with this Facebook, right?
Welcome to my world.
And just have like the influencer digital business model, because you're at such risk of some other giant corp, and they're busy, they're big, they're massive, right? They got billions of people on the platform, right? So and because there's so much fraud too, right? So seeing what's what and where to go and who to actually support and who's real and who's not, and like there's no real good way to manage that, but it sucks it friggin' sucks.
So we're on Instagram, so that's where under Hucks, where you can find us there. But this goes back to the point for all entrepreneurs is we've got to create these. So we do have email lists through our Shopify account, but that is why, because we're just paying for real estate on Instagram and Facebook, and they can you saw with TikTok and Trump and shutting that down. You cannot rely on that.
No. And it's, you know, I own a digital marketing agency. We live on social media. We manage, you know, hundreds of accounts, and it is, and I'm anxious about it every day. And shit happens, and, you know, I we'll talk off air. I could probably help with, you know, we have Facebook people and stuff that we connect with. But you have to diversify. And building your email list is the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest thing that you can do that most companies just don't, most small businesses just do not do.
I know.
You own that data.
Yeah.
You know, you can remarket. You obviously not, you know, taking advantage of you know, your list, but, you know, offering value as well, right? I mean, you know, I get emails from Old Navy every day saying 50% off, and that's a different story, right? Right. They have a strategy and they send 1 million emails out of 10% respond. It's I get it. That's the game. But when you're building this community, like you're building,
you got to be careful.
You got to be careful how you talk to them, and if you sell, they're gonna take off in a second.
Unsubscribe.
But, you know, building your community and diversifying 100%. If you know, if anyone takes anything from this, right, it's don't put all your eggs in one basket.
And there is our website at myhux.ca too.
Myhux.ca.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Good.
So, serious question. You said earlier you weren't sure the difference between a patent and trademark. And can you trademark Camel Toe?
No, I don't.
No,
have you tried?
Oh man. Well, check that at cameltoe.com. I don't know if I want to Google that though. I think that's a different type of website.
That was a serious question.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know what we'll find when we go down there. But man, yeah, that is so. It is. So, I honestly, since day one, when I saw Camel Toe, I'm like, this fucking girl. Like, good for you. Like, you're going with that, the tongue in cheek, the cool like kind of idea with that.
You're going to open with Camel Toe. You may as well close with
that.
Totally.
This would be the only time of this podcast we could do that, probably. Maybe, yeah. But
awesome.
I mean, we could probably talk for 2 more hours. But continued success, Jen, and maybe we'll have.
Can we have you back
on? I think we should have you back and kind of an
because
update.
Your journey from what you shared with us today and where you're going, there's going to be so much more to.
And really, it's just starting. I mean, you're 2 weeks out of your corporate career, and really just kind of like all in now. I can't wait to see what you do. Holy shit!
Thank you.
Congrats for everything.
Yeah, definitely congrats. Thanks for coming on. Huge value for our listeners and viewers for sure. And just keep it going.
Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Pleasure's
absolutely
Thank
good.
You.
All right. Well, that's a wrap.
Okay.
Be well. Take care. Peace. There it is.
Oh man.
All right. Nice.
Thanks,
good
gentlemen.
Stuff. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you for that.
Another great episode. Thanks for joining us. Please support our podcasts. By supporting us, you can go to YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, go to our website, hustleandgrindpod.com. That way you can go and you can apply to be a guest. Listen to us anywhere that you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple, all the channels. But we really appreciate your support. Keep listening. We have a lot of great episodes and a lot of great guests ready to go. We're going to keep coming hard at you here and digging into the hustle and grind of what it takes to be an entrepreneur and a business owner.